Joining us this morning, Dr. Raywat Deonandan, epidemiologist, associate professor in the Faculty of Health Sciences, University of Ottawa. Good morning.
Good morning.
How good of a morning is it?
It's pretty good. I own a Pfizer stock, so I'm pretty happy.
Oh, okay. Outside of Pfizer stock doing very well, it's up about 15% right now. How big is this news, Doctor?
It's pretty big. Now, we always have to be a little bit wary of science by press release. We haven't seen the actual data, just what the press release tells us. But if we believe and accept it on its face value, it's very promising. 90% effectiveness is pretty high. A lot of people online are obsessed with the 10% failure, which is, to be considered. But the seasonal flu vaccine has 40 to 70% effectiveness, depending upon the variation that we're looking at. So 90% is extraordinary. Keep in mind that the trial is just over half done. It's supposed to, one of the stopping points is when we have, 164 COVID cases detected, and they detected 94 cases. But of those 94 cases, 90% of them are in the placebo group, which means that if you get this vaccine, likely you have a 90% chance of being protected against getting sick. There are some issues to be worked out there, but on its face, this is very promising news.
What happens next?
What happens next for Pfizer is they are applying for emergency use authorization through the U.S. government, which means they'll be able to deliver some vaccine doses as an on-needed basis by the end of the year. That doesn't affect us so much. What needs to happen next is they have to finish the trial, get all of the safety data processed and analyzed, and then apply for, licensing in Canada. And we actually in Canada, we have a deal with Pfizer already for this vaccine. That's a good thing. They have access to this vaccine. Manufacturing and distribution will be an issue. They've already started manufacturing at scale in anticipation for a positive outcome, which is good. But this formulation needs to be stored in a refrigerated environment. It needs to be shipped in a refrigerated environment. That's an additional barrier to distribution. And we need at least 2 doses, probably. So it's going to take months, possibly years, to get it out to everybody if this is the formulation that we want. Keep in mind, there are scores of other candidates also making their way through this process. And I anticipate several others will have equally as positive results.
Okay, so 2 doses. Is that like go get your dose and then go get a booster? What does that mean? Give us a sense of that. Yeah,
exactly right. So people enduring this trial have their first dose back in July and their second dose in the beginning of November. It's kind of like if you ever had the shingles vaccine. I had it last year. You get one to your doctor's office and the second dose like 3 months later. And it's annoying, it's inconvenient. That's what you need to get a sufficient immunogenic response. It might require a 3rd booster. We don't know because this is all brand new. We haven't had anyone experiencing this disease for more than 7 or 8 months yet. So this is all enrolling in real time. But so far it looks like most of the candidates require at least 1 booster shot.
Okay. I'm quoting here from one of the news reports. It means protection from COVID-19 is achieved 28 days after the initial vaccination, which consists of a 2-dose schedule. Does that sound normal in the vaccination world? Get a vaccine, we would consider you to be immune after 28 days?
It means that you're developing antibodies measurably within 28 days at a level sufficient to prevent serious infection. That's what it means. That's normal. That's what we see with natural infection of this disease as well. Most people develop antibodies about 28 days after their initial infection.
Okay. They say they experienced or they found no safety issues. What would they be looking for when it comes to safety issues? Adverse reactions and these kinds.
Yes. So in clinical trials, we distinguish between serious adverse reactions and not serious adverse reactions. So the serious ones would obviously be death, anything requiring hospitalization or long-term incapacity. None of that has been observed, as far as we know, in this trial. Probably some non-serious ones, though. That seems to be common across most vaccine trials. Things like pain at the site of injection, maybe some fever. Again, when I had my shingles vaccine, I had a really rough 24 hours. But that's fine. That's expected. That goes away after a day or so. But we care about the serious stuff. And so far, they're reporting no serious side effects, which is fantastic.
Okay. Now, in terms of, I'm wondering what you think of the pace that this has moved at. Pandemic is declared around the middle of March. Here it is. We've just entered the second week of November, And this is part of a phase 3 clinical trial. You have one of the largest drug companies in the world saying, we think we have a vaccine. How remarkable is that?
It's pretty remarkable. And it's not just Pfizer. I mean, I was always bullish on the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine, which was first to the mark, as it were. There's Moderna with a really good candidate as well. The Chinese have one. The Russians have one. Like, there are literally scores, possibly hundreds of vaccine candidates, all making remarkable progress. This is unheard of. I mean, back in March when I first started writing about this, I was guessing 1 to 4 years before we had anything resembling phase 3 trial data. This is incredible, and it is a remarkable moment in the annals of science. And whoever brings an effective vaccine to market first will be in the running for a Nobel Prize, I think. This is how big this is. And this also really bodes well for how we deal with future pandemics, because if we can make the platform for vaccine development live and functional permanently, then every time a new pathogen comes our way, we can roll out a new vaccine faster in the future. So this is good news all the way around.
Yeah. I mean, in the world of pharmacy, it can take years. I mean, it can take a decade, even longer, and a lot of times drugs don't work. You know, they just don't work, and you have to give up on them. How worried should we be that the safeguards that are there, because this is usually such a laborious process, and yet it's moving at lightning speed, that maybe we're cutting corners, or that oversight is being compromised? Is there something to worry about at all?
I don't feel that any oversight has been compromised here. The reason we're able to move so fast is a couple of things. One is that the platform already existed. So a lot of these new vaccines are the result of work done months, if not years, on the Ebola vaccine. We just pivoted. And instead of focusing on Ebola, we focused on this coronavirus. So the technologies were already invented, the labs are ready to go, the reagents were established, all that stuff is ready to go. That's the first thing. Number two is a lot of the administrative barriers were removed. Right? So that's important. We just expedited the paperwork, as it were. And number three is phase 3 trials started before the phase 2 trials ended. That helped. And number four is manufacturing started before the final data came about. So in every possibility, things were accelerated without having to compromise the actual safety. And the safety is all about waiting until the safety data is available before people start getting this as part of a regular process. So that's what we're doing. What we don't want to do is rush something into market without assessing the safety data, and we're not doing that. So I'm confident that we're not short-circuiting the safety process.
Okay. When do you think Canadians could get inoculated from COVID-19?
Wow. That is the big question, right? And it comes down to which candidate it is. If it's not the Pfizer one, it's the AstraZeneca one or Moderna. Each one has different requirements for shipping, for manufacturing, for storage, etc. But in general, we're not high on the list. I mean, we negotiated for the Pfizer vaccine. I think we negotiated for the AstraZeneca vaccine late in the game. I think we'll have our vulnerable population and our healthcare workers might have access by spring of next year. And which means an immunogenic response by summer or fall, which means we shouldn't be afraid of this disease by next fall. Most people will not be immune then. It just means what we having our mask wearing and our distancing still in place, and probably not economic restrictions though. And then by early 2022, I anticipate the pandemic to be declared over, but it will still exist in many places. So by the end of 2022, I think most people will have been vaccinated.
Thank you, Dr. Deonandan. Thanks again. Great to hear from you this morning.
Thank you.
Yep. Epidemiologist, associate professor in the Faculty of Health Sciences of the University of Ottawa, Dr.